Are you ready for the main event? Are you ready for the main event? This is the one that I have been waiting for 6 months. Guys, we want to know, if I have social media followers, which is generally perceived as free media, how do I wring money out of that? Now you're going to tell us. Everybody, please give a round of applause to our extraordinarily distinguished panel that is moderated by our good friend and frequent sync-up panelist and moderator, Mr. Jonathan McHugh. Take it away.
All righty then. Good morning. Thank you, Scott. That was a very eloquent start to the day. A little bit too much too early, but anyway, yes, my name is Jonathan McHugh. This is actually my 33rd Jazz Fest in a row. I started my career at WTUL, and it actually ended up being a 30-year career in the music business, so we'd like to thank that fine institution for letting me spin some records there back in the day. So obviously the media has changed quite a lot over the last 30 years when I was starting in the business, and now it's almost a very different conversation. So the three gentlemen we have with us today are going to talk a little bit. We only have an hour, so they'll talk very fast, but they're all New Yorkers, so that's not a problem for them. So I'm going to introduce them, and then I'll throw them a question, and then we'll banty some things back and forth. We have some wonderful analytic slides we're going to show you about the correlation of things, and then we'll save time at the end for questions, or I may, if I feel the move, to hit you up with a question in between. So on my right, we're going to start with David Hazan? Hazan. Okay. And David is a veteran marketer who's been constantly conceived and executed breakthrough entertainment marketing campaigns for the Internet Brand Agency and entertainment clients. He's been with Orchard, MTV Networks, Universal Music Group, Warner Music, Putumayo World Music, and Wind Up Records. And now he's working for a client out of Helsinki, Finland, LiveMusicStage, who we'll talk about a little bit. So give it up for David. Next, this gentleman next to me is Dick Huey. He's the founder of Toolshed, Inc., which is a New York-based toolshed, has been doing it for over a decade, helping labels and artists and others develop social media marketing strategies. Clients have included such cool bands as Arcade Fire, Civil Wars, Annie DeFranco, and he used to work at the Run New Media for Beggar's Banquet, which has such super cool acts as Adele, Bon Iver, and Radiohead. And he ran the US launch of Spotify in 2011. So give it up for Dick, please. And all the way down, we have Alex White. His company, Next Big Sound, is an analytics, say that 5 times fast, service which measures daily music consumption and purchase decisions around the globe. From Facebook fans to sales, NBS combines artist activity with context to help the modern music industry make decisions. And they provide data to artists and labels and licenses for 2 charts on the Billboard magazine. So let's hear it for Alex White. So again, as Scott said, the concept of how to convert social media followers to customers. It's always the biggest kind of conversation, right? The media, as Scott said, is kind of a free media, and everybody wants to know how to translate it to actual real sales so they can actually make a living in this business, which at the end of the day, it is not a charity business, but something that we all try to make a living at. And it's become much more challenging over the years. But through that, a lot of opportunities have come up in different platforms. So we're going to talk about some of those platforms and these gentlemen will recommend some of the things that they see out there that can really help an artist move their business forward and keep the conversation going with the media. So we're going to start with David and talk a little bit about the case study you recently worked on and what you're doing and how you see the ability to convert social media to customers.
Thanks, Jonathan. LiveMusicStage is basically a live music streaming company launching in the US later this year, headquartered in Helsinki. On March 23rd, we worked with a symphonic metal band called Epica, based in Holland. Their 1.6 million Facebook likes were fans mostly in South America and North America to a lesser extent. So this is a big event, their 10th anniversary, choir, symphony. And they were already doing a DVD, and they wanted to figure out how to monetize their social media base more. So they partnered with us to market a live stream pay-per-view concert. And we promoted that in advance and encouraged them to interact with their audience. With so much content available for free on YouTube, the question has to be asked, what's going to make a fan pay to watch something? And what we stressed was the need for added value offerings. You have to give people something that they can't get from clicking on a YouTube link. And we had a live chat with the band a week in advance for people that had bought their tickets in advance. So we had, the price was €7 if you bought it like right up to the time, but it was €5 if you bought it in advance, so that was an incentive to sell more. And then we were able to sell to those fans concert plus t-shirt packages, bundles. And we sold over 100 of those, or they sold more than 100 of those. But that was stuff that they really were not thinking of doing. So it really comes down to engaging with your fans and providing a platform for your fans to engage with each other. So there was a concert chat that was set up. And it basically, we sold 1,881 tickets. And generally, in the live music streaming space, if you're selling over 1,000, you're doing really well. And this is a band that's not very well known in mainstream UK, where we have an office, and in most of the US, except for the metal markets. And it was just a very successful, smallish, but successful case study. The whole live music streaming space is set to expand pretty quickly, pretty soon.
Are you seeing a much more advanced, as far as the UK and the rest of Europe and outside the world? How would you compare what's going on the social media platforms to here? Is it the same? Is it different? Is it greater? Is it less, as far as you can see?
I guess my response is just based on the different nature. Americans are more comfortable selling directly, you know, buy my new track, buy this. Sometimes our European acts are not as sure how they want to engage with their fans. They're doing it to sell product, but they don't want to ask aggressively. And in most music genres, you know, a relentless sales approach is not really the best way to engage your fans online. And to be clear and to make the connection clear, the reason that you engage your fans is so that you can monetize those fans. You have to give something of yourself, as we were saying in our cafe talk before we came here. And a lot of the bands, I think you said you were working with, Dick, weren't sure what to say to their audience, how to talk to their audience. And it's just like how you would talk to your friends. I mean, they're not real friends on Facebook, but you can talk to them and think of them like friends, and just whatever makes you unique in your own personality, what makes you funny or interesting, you know, think of that as the basis that you would engage these fans as you would with friends at a cocktail party.
Yeah, Dick, let's talk about, jump into that for a second. The reference that you did while we were having our coffee, I thought was a really simple, basic one. Why don't you talk about what you see as the best ways for artists to engage their fans?
Okay, I'll do that. First, though, I want to find out who's here. Pretty much everybody in the room a musician or in a band? Raise your hand if you are. Okay, so for the people who didn't raise hands, labels or just curious here because you didn't have anything else to do at 10 a.m.? Gotcha. Other presenters? Great. Okay. Yeah, so just one thing I want to add to what David said a minute ago. All of us have friends, I'm sure, who only talk about themselves. And you know when you walk into the room and you meet up with this particular friend that you're going to hear about what they're doing, and you're not going to have a minute to get a word in edgewise. That same thing is what happens on 95% of the Facebook or social media conversations that most bands engage in, and they don't even realize they're doing it. One of the reasons they don't realize they're doing it is they don't think of social media as what its name suggests, social media. Social media means having a conversation. If all you ever do is talk about what you're doing, what your band does, when your next show date is, the fact that you have a record for sale. You aren't really having a conversation with anybody. You're just putting information out there, and people get turned off if they're not engaging in a conversation with you. And here's an example of, that we were talking about at the break, of how you can change the tone of how you communicate on a social media platform. Very simple way. There are two ways to express the fact that you're going for a cup of coffee in the morning. All the time I get asked by bands, what should I post? And I say, post about what you do, what makes you, you. Okay, I'm going to get a cup of coffee. No conversation.
Statement only.
Statement. Here's a different way to say it. My first time in New Orleans, it's not. My first time in New Orleans, where can I go get a good cup of coffee? That's a conversation. That's going to encourage anybody who follows me to feedback. And that's probably the number one change to an approach that you can make as an artist, is ask questions. Encourage other people to talk. Don't be the only person talking. And you do that by the same way you would do it in person with somebody, by not just talking about yourself.
And obviously the correlation between the conversation with your audience and how things can actually sell is obviously what everybody really wants to know. How is it that what I do, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, how does it get across to people want to buy? Alex specializes in analytics. So I'm going to turn it over to him to talk about some of the trends that you see and have seen recently and where you think things are going and what great correlations might be.
Sure. Before diving into the data behind this, I want to just add in a little bit on top of what Dick was saying, is when you're first starting that conversation, if you think about it in real life, if there's a group of people standing there, you don't just walk up to them and either say nothing or start shouting your message at them. You want to figure out what they're talking about and how you can insert yourself into that conversation and into that dialogue. And I had an example. I was out on the road tour managing a band for 2 months in 2008 on a nationwide tour. And this was when Twitter was first coming around, and everyone in the band, all 5 guys, thought it was the stupidest thing that they'd ever heard of. And so I downloaded it onto each of their phones, and I ran the band's the band's official account. And I was kind of bothering them every day to post something, and they were confused and had no idea and didn't really get it. And it wasn't until, as the official account, we ran this. I posted this thing where we helped our fans figure out what their stripper names were going to be, which is the street that you grew up on and your first animal, your first household pet. And that exploded just thousands of conversations. All of their female fans just jumped right into it. All of the guys posted their own names. And that was really a light bulb moment for these guys, where they saw that, wow, here's thousands of people that actually are interested in what we do. It sparked a ton of debate around, whose names were funnier and sillier and stupider. And that really jump-started and switching the conversation from statements around, hey, we're in this town, hey, we're in that town, to more of that kind of conversational. These are real people that we're interacting with, and they want to have fun and get to know us as well.
And then, before we jump into it, the other thing is, if you are an artist, you make music, but you're not necessarily that person that engages well or makes great creative videos, find a collaborator. Find someone, a friend that does make videos or has a sense of humor and can add some snappy repartee with you that makes people laugh. It's not just about always the music. It's about, like you said, that conversation on whatever level it is, whether it's informational or fun or, the simple as, where do I get a great cup of coffee in the French Quarter, where you're asking for feedback. And, those kind of things are super important. So you always got to think about it, even if you're just not that guy that looks at Twitter and go, God, what am I going to say today? Have somebody help you. Have somebody do it that has a sense of humor, that knows your personality, that can do it for you and with you. So don't just, hit a block. find help. So let's jump into some stats.
Great. If you can pull it up. So we track all the public social activity for hundreds of thousands of bands for the last 4 years. We started with a site called MySpace way back when in 2009. And then we added Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and SoundCloud and Wikipedia and on Instagram as these new sites come around. So I'm very familiar with being completely overwhelmed with all the new ways to connect with your fans and measure what's actually working and what's not. And before you go and think that you have to execute this international, flawless campaign across multi-channels and drive all this sort of revenue, I always try to dial it back and just start first with the basics, which is just the first stage when you're starting your career is awareness. And do people know that you exist and that your music exists? And can you focus on a couple of numbers, 3 key numbers? Right now, I would recommend, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as great starting points. Then moving more to the engagement phase, which is where what we're discussing about once you have an initial fan base, and ultimately revenue and monetizing those. Because if there's no one that knows who you are and there's no one that's engaging with you, you're not going to be able to monetize or sell them anything. So what you're looking at right here is MNDR and her Facebook followers, daily Wikipedia page views, and YouTube detections. And Dick?
Can I just add something on here?
Yeah.
So this particular artist, I think what's interesting about it, maybe for this crowd, is that this is a new artist. She's this is her first record. Her record came out in August of last year, and the build approach on this artist tags off what you said a minute ago, which is, the conventional wisdom is often that I hear people say all the time that you need to be everywhere. You need to make sure that you are communicating on lots and lots of different platforms so people might find you. The problem with that thinking is if you're sort of half there, or you're just taking what you posted on Twitter and reposting it on Facebook, or even using the automatic linkage that allows you to do that, people pick up very quickly that you're not actually live. And once that happens, it's like stepping into a conversation but not really saying anything. People tune you out pretty quickly. And so in MNDR's case, new artist, had a great Twitter following, at least for starting band. She had about 1,400 Twitter followers, but she wasn't really anywhere else. So what's the next step? Where do you go next from that? We didn't actually take the obvious step, which would be to go to Facebook. She didn't really have any video at that point. We thought about, since she's engaged on Twitter, what can we leverage off of Twitter? And we came up with an outfit called Turntable. Turntable allows you to DJ live. And because she's in the electronic dance music space, we thought this is a good fit for her. We created a little, like a caricature of her that would show up. We worked with the company to do this with Turntable. And created this caricature and then put her up on the deck along with Twitter superfans who were talking about her. And we said, you can go up on the deck first with her if you tweet about it. And so by doing this and a variety of other tactics, we were able to launch her into a new platform, which she actually participated in. We made sure that if she was going to be somewhere, that she actually got up and DJ'd more than once, not just a single time. And that's really the key. So new artist, and we were able to, I'm going to let Alex talk again here now, but that's how we sort of methodically went platform by platform, making sure that she was actually there, and not just reposting something that was appearing on her, on her Twitter, on her Facebook.
And all of this stuff, there's so many different channels and ways to approach it now. And Dick had sent me the list of all the promotional events that they were doing for this artist to get awareness and engagement from the fan base. And that's all the work that everyone's doing, whether it's concerts or playing live or recording or posting new content, reaching out to blogs and press. You're doing all of these things, but you have to measure to see what's actually working and connecting and resonating with your fan base versus just kind of blindly doing things over and over again. And so in a time series graph like this, it's pretty obvious where the spikes in activity were. And the whole goal is to click and understand what was actually driving those events. So in this case, this first little blip here, MNDR got a sync on Gossip Girl. But that paled in comparison to a Letterman appearance that she later went on to have. And what was the second one?
So Letterman appearance, and then right before that was, I think, was the Perez Hilton debut of the video.
RuPaul's Drag
You should
Race.
also add, because I don't think you've said it yet, that this platform is available for artists. Your platform is available for artists.
Yes, we have a free product you can sign up for to get free weekly email reports, and then a paid subscription plan once you're at that stage.
What's the product called, the free product?
Next Big Sound.
Next Big Sound. Just that's it. Easy.
Yeah, at nextbigsound.com. So this was surprising because RuPaul's Drag Race and the Perez Hilton spike was bigger than the David Letterman appearance, which you wouldn't have known if you weren't tracking these numbers. And instead of gunning after late night TV appearances, maybe the better channel might be these sort of stranger avenues. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when you're talking about converting, the red line is YouTube detections, blue is Wikipedia page views, and green is Twitter followers.
That particular thing too was it was a video that she did of Raven, who is part of RuPaul's Drag Stars, basically getting made up or dressed to one of her songs. So he took a liking to that, started performing to it out in Los Angeles where he performs, and and it turned into a video, and the video went viral. But partly, I mean, so it was a combination of sort of strategic mentions. Having RuPaul retweet about this video was a big deal. You can see the spike, and having Perez Hilton talk about it was equally huge.
Alex, stress the importance of, Wikipedia might not be something normally people think about. They think about stars and famous people have Wikipedia, but talk about the importance that we talked about also the correlation of, what it can mean, singles, selling tracks versus records.
Yeah, so we have this data set of all the public data, and then we have sales numbers, daily iTunes sales numbers for 75% of the music industry that our clients push to us. That's 3 of 3 majors and thousands of individual artists. And then we hired a bunch of really smart guys to analyze all this data. We hired someone who was at the Yankees doing Moneyball, and then went to the NSA and then joined the company, and another guy with a PhD in physics who's an expert in Bayesian modeling, which I had no idea what that meant until our first data scientist
Can you explain what that means?
Explained what it was. Yeah, Bayesian modeling is the idea that it's not a deterministic, this band's a hit and I know it. It's all probabilistic. So what's the given probability that any individual artist in the world is going to become, on the next platinum act or the next sell out an arena tour? So you set some success criteria like headlining Jazz Fest or selling 1,000 albums, and then work backwards and assign probabilities based on historical performance. Anyway, we released a study last year about the causality of social media on digital album sales and then digital track sales. And what this is saying, it's a little complicated. This is as close to causality as we can prove without running randomized experiments with artists. But it's what's the percentage of artists where knowing any one of these bunch of sources that we tracked improves the accuracy of album sale forecasts. So you'll notice here, number 1, I don't know if it's washed out. Yeah, you can see it. .com visits. So knowing how many people are going to the artist.com was very impactful for digital album sales. Views to an artist's Facebook page. This is not page likes. This is views to the page. Radio spins, obviously very important. And views to an artist's Wikipedia page was probably the most surprising finding from that study. So the number of times that people go to view an artist's Wikipedia page, we figure, really represents them interested in the artist as an entity and as an artistic creator, as opposed to when this chart is for track sales, Wikipedia doesn't factor in nearly as much. It's mostly radio and Twitter and Facebook.
Can I add something about that? So if you look at this, well, not including radio spins, but I guess the first 3 or 4 categories, probably, I'm guessing what that translates into is people doing a search on a particular artist on Google and seeing those first hits, seeing the artist's website, seeing their Facebook page, and they're just following the links down, and they're finding the Wikipedia page. So many artists forget about the Wikipedia page or don't address the Wikipedia page, and it's super important in all of your studies, really both track relationships for sales and also album relationships for sales. Wikipedia ties in.
So you mentioned something that hits me is that the SEO, the search engine optimization, right? How important that is to have the right things that you want on top of that Google search, because the world is a Google search. It's just that amazing and that easy. So talk a little bit about how artists might work that channel to be able to make sure that if there are similar name projects to yours, that how they might be able to jump them to get to that in front of it and find out, you know, how to get there.
Well, at the very beginning, this starts when you're selecting your band name, and we have a list of names on the wall that cause a big headache for us to track and also for the artists themselves. Bands like Hockey, Red, Town, these sort of things are not good band names to stand out because you're never going to be the first result for Red. But once you've selected your name, you know, I think it is focusing on owning your .com and trying to make sure that you have, as Dick was talking about, the 3 or 4 big platforms where you've secured your name and your likeness and you have the same image across them and linkages between all those different pages. And it's just a step-by-step. Google's gotten very good at recognizing which ones people click on most and which ones are providing value. That's why Wikipedia keeps rising, you know, higher and higher and stays towards the top. It's science, but it's also a lot of just claiming the big pages.
Good. As this is kind of, you know, science, if anybody has any questions now while it's on top of mind and they want to spit them out, I'll accept. Yes, ma'am.
So you said if some bands had a similar band name, how would you go about that?
How would you go about changing
Like,
it?
no. I have a great name, so I don't want to change it. I'd like to know, like, how do you get your band name to figure above the other band names on Google?
Well, this is SEO is a huge topic in and of itself, but it's based on votes from one web page to another, and the higher authority every web page is given one in Google. So the New York Times linking to your band is a higher vote of confidence than my personal blog linking to your band. So it's really your SEO.
Media is very important.
Your SEO rises as more authoritative sites link to you and say, you know, your name plus music, and that's.
But let me just add to that the process of getting more authoritative sites to pay attention to what you're doing is very much related to what you're doing on that site. So if you're, like I was saying earlier, if you're just reposting, for instance, information from somewhere else, and you're not actually engaged on the site, you're not doing yourself any favors. I mean, you may be, while it's true that you may be providing an avenue of information, you're not actually creating the sort of snowball effect that you look for with social media, which is people talking, people sharing what you're doing with their friends, and, you know, getting to the point where you can post, there's an artist now, called Cat Power who has an Instagram, and she puts up images all the time on there of really just random things. She put up an image of a knife the other day, and she got over 200 likes for the image of the knife. And she can do that because at this point she's posted enough, and people realize that most of what she posts is actually connected to what she thinks in one way or another. That you know, it's very effective, and then that becomes a social media source for her.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, like, what is the data set for this? It's interesting to not see things like, or to see Last FM, see Vivo above YouTube, see radio plays, which is kind of irrelevant for a lot of artists.
Yeah, keep in mind this is the last 4 years, so
It
that's
is.
where there's MySpaces and
Yeah.
Last FMs. This is for about 5,000 artists,
It is, okay.
randomly selected.
I mean, do you have more like something that is recent that it, is looking at things like Spotify and Pandora and stuff?
We need to update this.
You do.
That'll be for next year's panel. Come
Yeah.
back, you'll have more.
Stay tuned.
Come back next year.
Hi, and I'm sorry if this is a silly question, but I'm going back to the topic from before. I have people calling me all the time. We have a service, we can get you like top billing on Google and all these websites and da-da-da, if you pay, $1,000 or, whatever. Who are these people? Who do you trust? Who do you not trust? Or is it the whole thing just bogus?
If it sounds too good to be true, it is. There's white hat and black hat SEO. And honestly, Google is built in such a way that there's millions of people trying to game the system and become number one. And so it's really about building your authority, building your brand, doing a lot of the things, the self-promotion and links and PR outreach and everything like that.
And using the right keywords.
Work, yeah, slow
Keywords are
build, and keywords, yeah.
The more the right keywords that you have seated in your site, the higher the Google search ranking returns will be. And that's a critical element of
But on top of that, too, the problem that, and I hate those services, really, really actively dislike them. Just because you have, first of all, depending on what your objective is with getting all of these followers, let's say it's you want YouTube views. Somebody that shows up with 15,000 YouTube views and 0 comments or 3 comments that are the same thing, anybody that knows and most labels these days are going to be smart enough to figure that out. So you will have spent money on nothing, really. I mean, you've got a lot of views, but it isn't actually going to accomplish anything for you. I think it's a total waste of time.
Just real quick,
build your own
while we're
audience.
on that topic, David posted something this morning really interesting about a band who literally went public with saying that they had all these fake book likes that were encroaching on their site because they were pushed from other artists, and how important it is not to get caught up in that as part of your strategy. Oh yeah, I can buy these likes and thus puff up my stature, and then more people will either book me or a label will take me more seriously. So David, why don't you just comment on that, and then we'll get to your last couple questions.
This band was perplexed that they got all these new likes, and they were coming from certain countries in Eastern Europe, and normally you would think the more likes the better. It makes your story look better, but what was happening is because they weren't real fans, the level of engagement dropped drastically, and all the heat, all the community that was on their page was gone, and they were really at a loss to explain where they came from. We were speculating among ourselves, and it's part of how Facebook sell ads. And as a lot of you probably know already, Facebook has recently started the questionable practice of charging bands after they've built their community, charging them to advertise to reach their own fans. So an increasingly lower percentage of your fans are actually seeing your posts, and if you want to make sure that you reach all of them, you now have to pay Facebook for that. They're entitled to find their business models, but I think there are easier, bigger ways to go about that. So that's making a lot of artists think about what alternatives there are to Facebook. What are the next social networks? What's their own version of a social network that they might be able to do? If Lady Gaga's manager has started something called Backplane, which is based on artist-centric social media sites. So no one knows where all that's going to go, but the idea that you inherit all of these likes because Facebook required more inventory, possibly, again, only speculating, but that a lot of bands were buying access not just to their own fans, but friends of their own fans, were running short of inventory and were sort of pumping up their numbers. And it's a 7-minute clip. I don't know if you guys know of Hypebot, toolshed.com, Hypebot, but I think this was just posted yesterday or the day before. And you'll see a 7-minute, somewhat rambling video by the artist, but it's worth kind of watching.
But yeah, just something to be careful about. Just don't get caught up in the hype and keep it organic as far as reaching out to people. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about the Wikipedia graphic that you have. That is very surprising to me. But you see stuff that band profiles that are posted on Wikipedia that are so obviously a press release sometime. And it has occurred to me many times reading these that if people, Wikipedia is a community, and they will tell you, I mean, basically, when you see one of those, and there's no discographical information, there's nothing about the composers, it basically is kind of a blurb for a band, you'll get all these comments there. And I'll go back a month later, and nothing has changed. So I think, bands have to keep in mind that these are communities, and they do have their kind of rules, and the rules for Wikipedia have to do with sourcing your information properly, getting, having people be able to actually look back and check the articles and, and the various things, and also having it obvious that there's, in many ways, that this is the product of many hands. That's a problem I see a lot with the way that artists use social media. These things have characters. I mean, you said you worked on the rollout of Spotify. For me, one of the things that most excited me about Spotify was seeing what an artist put up as their playlist. I mean, that's the kind of taste element that that really drives it. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about the nature of these communities and the the sort of the protocols and the etiquette, and and why that's important.
It's great.
Okay.
I think you're spot on with every one of these networks and sites has their own protocols and their own communities and their own language. I was pulling up ours, and it looks like it's changed. Before, we tried to create our own Wikipedia page, and the community axed it, and they said, you can't do that. And then someone else who we didn't know, we tried to figure out who did it, and we never could, did it, and then it got changed, and then there was a red thing at the top that said, this seems like an advertisement, somebody change this. And we were trying to change it, and they wouldn't let us. I don't know how they police that, but that's like if you're doing hashtags, which is a Twitter thing on another network, then you look foolish, and you really have to learn each one. But I think to keep in mind, one thing that's important is everyone thinks that everybody else has this totally figured out, when in reality, Facebook, for instance, if you've been marketing on Facebook since they invented their page likes, you can't possibly have more than 3 years of experience. That's the most experienced Facebook marketer. And it changes, the rules change every 6 weeks. And so everyone's trying to figure out how each of these networks works and behave, and there's good actors and bad actors in each one.
Hey, I'm going to jump in here real quick. I know you all have questions, and I don't mean to be rude, but you're not answering my question, and I want to hear it. Our time is limited. We were talking before the panel about strategies, social media strategies, specific things that you can do that you may be doing that may not be working, things that you should do, like when should you tweet, when should you post, and what types of calls to action should you be engaging? You already talked at the beginning of not just having a one-way dialogue, but engaging in a conversation. But what types of calls to action can you then convert somebody that likes you or follows you into buying a ticket, buying a track, doing something like that? And you also, Alex, have some really incredible metrics to show when you do certain things, it leads to certain results. Can you guys focus on that for us?
Sure. Let me just say a little bit about that. So there are a variety of best practices that you should utilize as a band. Just a couple things to keep in mind. So generally, you want to have every 4 to 6 weeks what we term as a major event. It's not always easy to figure out what that major event is going to be, but you want to have either a major event could be defined as the release of a piece of content. It could be a major piece of news, the announcement of a tour, for instance. It could be, let's see, so content, news, maybe it's a contest that you're launching. And those happen every 4 to 6 weeks. Need to happen religiously. People have very short shelf lives on the internet. But then every week, and getting more to Scott's question, at least once a week, you need to be following up on each of your social platforms that you're actually part of. And this also gets to the other gentleman's question about Spotify. You know, if you are working on Spotify or Rdio, you've been verified as an artist, and you're not actively creating playlists, you're sort of wasting your time. On Facebook and other social media platforms, you know, it's really all about taking a piece of your personality and putting it into the platform and asking for engagement on that. You know, this is what I'm into. What are you into? What do you like about the fact that I love the band Babes in Toyland? Do you like Babes in Toyland? You know, those are the kinds of questions that you want to ask. And then as far as getting specifically to Scott's question about outreach, there are better times of day to hit people, whether it be press or fans, with messages. If you're doing direct emailing and you're using a product like MailChimp, which is a great product to collect email addresses on your own websites. And by the way, when you collect information for your own website, that's information you get to keep. It's not Facebook information, like David said, that is going to be turned around and become really an advertising platform that you need to pay for to access your fans. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be there. You just need to understand what it is. Your own website is your own information, and if you collect email addresses and use a product like MailChimp, you can schedule emails so they go out at optimum times during the day. So you're not just sending an email Friday evening because that's when you finally found some time during the week to write your email, and you're sending it out, and everybody else is out at clubs or whatever, and it's in the process of being buried down in their email results. You can schedule so that, for instance, your friends on the East Coast and your friends in the middle of the country and your friends on the West Coast are getting emails in their morning. Earlier in the week is better than later in the week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, best days for sending out emails. And what was the other thing I'll think of it in a minute. Go ahead.
Crowd Booster and Social Flow are two tools you can use for scheduling tweets in the same way. And they recommend optimum times for your fan base of when your fans are actually online so that your message will hit. And I think the biggest thing for me is remembering the two words music, business. So music, that's your creative time where you're writing and recording and performing and honing your craft. And separate that from the business side, which is about metrics and measurement and strategy and when you post. Ian Rogers, formerly of Topspin, had a different tweak on your scheduling. And the point is just to have a schedule, but he was saying one small thing every day, one medium-sized thing every month. So what's the one question you can post every day or photo or something like that, and then every week can you do a video or a quick chat or some kind of event to engage. This is for full time, but figuring out what works for you and which channels work for you. And that's the business side of measuring, hey, I did a Twitter chat every Thursday for a month, and the engagement ramped and ramped and ramped, or it dropped off, and then I'm going to not do that anymore. So figuring out and testing a bunch of different things. This is an artist, Haim, and these are daily Facebook page likes in blue, and green is iTunes track sales. And so it's on a relative scale, so I've obscured the numbers, but you can see at the beginning here that they were trending together. Here's where Facebook spiked in advance of iTunes track sales. This is around falling in the release of one of their pieces of content, but the sales followed after the posts on Facebook. And then there's other instances where Facebook spikes, but it doesn't translate to sales. and what are those specific drivers that do translate and what don't, and again, experimenting with all those different channels.
That's it. That's what I want to know. So what are the calls to action? Why does that Facebook post correlate to sales and that one doesn't?
So this bump in Facebook here was around an appearance on Jules Holland, which is over in the UK. And so the viewership there was not purchasing US iTunes track sales. Maybe if they'd had a link from Facebook saying, you can download the song you just heard us perform here, that would have translated more, but they did nothing.
So there's a call to action.
Let's
There's
see.
come and buy this. And so, so they have to have something that they can tell people to do that will earn the money, and then they have to make that message effective.
Call to action is huge, and it's something that so many people either don't do or are sort of afraid to do on the net. But there are a variety of different studies that talk about the difference between you posting information and then, for instance, using Twitter, posting an informational tweet and then saying, would you please share this with a friend? The number of additional shares that are garnered is north of 50%. It's a huge number. So it's not something that you're going to do with every post, but it absolutely is something that you need to do with some of your posts. You need to ask people to do things. If it's quick and easy for them, and it is mostly on social media, if they like you, they'll do it.
And so here, this was on this date. Falling video is finally here. Here's a great post by Falling now. Click here to watch it. And the spike in sales that comes a few days later.
So they get people to watch a free video on YouTube, and people go to that, then go to iTunes and actually purchase the track.
Yep.
They've monetized that free social platform.
There's another piece to that that's important, which is I think all of us on the panel and all of you recognize that the end goal in all of this is to sell music. But you don't, there are a lot of different ways to sell music. And you don't just sell music by asking people to buy music. If you create a conversation and you create a linkage between you and your fan base, they'll buy the music because they like you. And it's not just because you put the informational piece out there that I have a record for sale. I used to do this thing where I would, well, here's an example. I'll do it real quick. I know we're short on time, but I'm going to hop down. So this is a CD, okay? All right, we're on Facebook. Do you want to buy my CD? All right, let me switch platforms. I'm on Twitter now. Do you want to buy my CD? Why aren't you sure?
I don't know anything about your music. I've never heard your music.
Yeah, but it's really good music. Okay, so you get the point, right? That's the point. If you don't start a conversation, you don't. If somebody doesn't trust that my music is great, and anybody who doesn't know me personally isn't going to know that my music is great. If you don't start that conversation and offer to bring other people into your world by letting them talk about themselves a little bit, you're not. You might as well be posting on the moon.
And yeah, don't
because you're
feel
gonna get the
bad.
same
Like you
effect.
said in that interaction, that first thing should have been, well, I don't know what it sounds like. Well, here's a free track. You know, here's another free track. I mean, get people excited about your work. The videos obviously are the greatest tool ever because it shows theoretically your personality and how well you deliver that message of music. But you have to engage, and to get people to want to write a check, the biggest note is you have to have that relationship with your audience that makes them want to buy into you on some level, whether it's music, T-shirt, or whatever it is.
One other thing about that. Anybody who's a musician in this room, you look at the world differently than 99% of the rest of the country. You have something special that 99% of the rest of the country who are not musicians do not have. And yet, probably 95, 96% of the musicians don't ever share that. Like, you look at the world differently. You know, when you look at red, you see green, or you know, when you look at blue, you see pink. Whatever it is, that's not accountant thinking. That's not banker thinking. And people are fascinated by that, by what makes you different as a musician. You have to share that.
And again, if it's not you, if it's not part of your lexicon of personality, find a partner, find a manager, find someone that wants to help you in this cause of spreading your music. And you know, the best bands are successful through finding street teams, their own fans that go out and spread their message of music and the passion, and and it's a circle, and all these concentric circles come together until someone wants to buy your music, and that's really, at the end of the day, how we stay as a music business. So we have a little bit of time for questions. Yes.
My name is Shelley Moulton, and I manage Desmond, a reggae roots singer-songwriter. David actually answered the first part of my question about the Facebook and the fact that you're not able to reach your fans, and he has actually seen some of those Eastern Bloc likes on his page. So my second question is, how do you get around that, if at all? Do you spend any of your social media budget on Facebook, or is it better spent on Google AdWords or YouTube?
It's a lot of variables there. It depends on the timing and if it's what your goals are, if it's to sell a track or if it's to lay a base for an upcoming tour. If you want to zero in on what's going on right now, I can give you my recommendation, but open-ended like that, I need a more specific version of the question. So, but what's going on right now?
Well, I mean, in terms of engaging with your fans, because you're not able to reach your Facebook fans. These likes are sitting there, but if you make a post, you will see that it only reached like 25 people were exposed to this post. And then there's a link, boost your message, right? So you're not reaching your audience. So would you be better able to reach your audience on another platform? Should we ignore Facebook?
What kind of web traffic do you have? Because you know that anyone's going on to your artist's
our
website.
Website gets lots of visit. The website gets lots of visit.
Because you monetize your audience online by engaging your audience online, and it's easier to engage that audience when there's fewer distractions, and there's so many on Facebook. At least if someone is on your own site, you know that you can count on a higher level of engagement and a higher call to action. Wikipedia was another example. I don't know why everyone's so surprised about that. I mean, if I want to find out more about a band, I go to the wiki page, and if you're into an album type of situation, it makes sense that you would go there. So Dick had said that that's really underutilized. So
Here's what I would do, and that's obviously case by case. I would run 3 experiments. I'd spend $50 on Facebook, I'd spend $50 on AdWords, then I'd spend $50 making YouTube videos. And I'd see 1 week, and then see which caused any reaction. Let's say you're trying to drive single sales, then post a link each time. Otherwise, measure just awareness in general bump.
One other thing you can, just to add to what both these guys said, you don't always need to be the creator of the content. So for instance, we work with this artist, Martin Sexton, and one of the most effective events he's ever done, if you have a band that's been around for a while, is asking fans to post photos of their old ticket stubs. That garnered over 300 posts. Lots and lots and lots of pictures just filling up his Facebook. And once you make a post like that, people on that fans network see it. And then you can take a post like that and do a promoted post on that post. So the quality of the post that you're doing as a promoted post is important.
Thank you.
All right, we got to keep going. I've got a couple more minutes, and then we're done.
Just a quick question. You all haven't talked about putting a fan forum on your website, which I see, especially once you reach a certain level as an artist, as a way of really controlling the money. Can you weigh in on that at all?
About whether or not you should have a fan forum?
Yeah, and at what point you should consider it?
Let's see. The nice thing about having a fan forum on your website is, in some senses, Facebook or Twitter is a fan forum too, but it's not one that you actually control. So the obvious advantage to pulling that conversation inside your website, and a lot of the bigger artists do this, is that you control it. The downside to it is that fan forums don't generally, and I don't think I'm wrong about this, but fan forums don't generally have sort of a social connection piece that extends outside the community they're in. So in my mind, there's a place for them once you get to a particular level. It's hard to put an exact metric on that level, but I'm going to take a stab at it and say, maybe when you get to the level of 50 or 100,000 Facebook likes, for instance, you might have enough conversation going around that you could employ the idea of a fan or a fan discussion group inside your website. But the worst thing that you can have is a fan discussion group where there's 3 discussions. That's bad. Stick to the other social networks first until you're sure you can get past that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a quick question, which may be applicable to a lot of Jazz Fest artists, which is, does your social media strategies change for audience bases that are more 35 and over as opposed to younger?
So the question is upper demo versus younger demo. Does it change?
There's a huge change. There's a huge change. There's a tendency, Facebook tracks stronger amongst older users than Twitter does generally. And yeah, they're all different kinds of strategies. I think that there are many of the things that I've mentioned today about tactics that you can use. For instance, the idea of asking your fans to post ticket stubs. Or here's another one. If you're doing shows where you've got enough people in the room that you have people shooting smartphone videos of you, consider picking a day of the week and doing a YouTube Wednesday, where you ask fans on that particular day, and you do this every week, to post videos that they've shot at your shows, and you pick a favorite video and offer the winner 2 tickets to a show somewhere near you. I mean, this works obviously for fans that have that tour regularly.
I would look at your Facebook insights and then your audience when you're live and get a sense of male, female, age, demographics, and then there's network analysis, infographics where it's showing Facebook versus Instagram, for instance, is mostly teenagers versus Facebook, which is older demographic now. So trying to align which platforms might help inform that.
Who has a Facebook and has never looked at Facebook metrics? Be honest. Okay? So you've got a wide variety of demographic information right at your fingertips that's free, and every artist that has a band page has access to this information.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I amassed 5,000 friends on my profile. I switched it to a fan page, and now I'm lost because I can't interact with them, but I can speak to them and control what I'm saying, and I can see what kind of response I get when I post, but I don't know how to use that, and I'm trying to translate the 54 I have to make my Twitter go from 400 to 500, and I'm stuck at like 440, and I need help. I post a picture, and if it's of me, I noticed this though, if it's of me, I get 12,000 to 1,200, but if it's of anything else, it goes down to like 100, 200. But if I post a link and then don't show the picture, if I X the picture out but just keep the link, I still keep my 1,000, 1,100, 1,200.
See, measuring, can you show everyone the shirt that you're wearing? That's brilliant. I love that. But the Facebook conversion stuff is a huge pain, and they're very unresponsive when you try to switch things over, if anyone's tried to do that, or combine 2 pages together, and there's no rhyme or reason to it of when they actually do those roll-ups, and they cause huge problems for us because it looks like you have a huge Facebook spike, but actually they just finally merge your pages 6 weeks after you beg them to do it.
It was quick. It was quick. I went
one.
from fan page to profile overnight, but I lost everything. I have them and now I can't talk to them. I can't, you know, post on their pages. Can't do anything.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, I know another artist, Ken Stringfellow, who's got 2 profiles because he hit his 5,000 limit. So he's got 2 5,000, you know, just because he likes to converse with people.
Yeah.
And it's that's a challenge. I think that their thinking is that once you get to that many people, that you're not actually going to want to have those kinds of conversations. But maybe, just going back to what the other woman was saying that was up here a minute ago, maybe it's time for you to open a fan forum and stop thinking about utilizing Facebook for all this kind of engagement. I mean, it's useful, but if you really have that many conversations going on, maybe you ought to try to pull those conversations into your website.
Okay, thank you.
All right, last question. We got to go.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Brett. One of the biggest things of all that, I don't know if it affects everybody else or not, but I think it would, the whole world, is time. And I know with me, I love my music, but I also have to survive. And the split between the two of all these things that I've found when I get on the computers, everything takes time, effort, and energy. I don't care what it is I'm trying to do. And in my survival as well as in my music, I'm fighting just to find time anymore just to even do my music anymore, which I still always love in my life, but I've got to survive in my life. And then I just wonder, is there anything that you advise in helping and whatsoever, or getting people to help? Because I can't, playing my music
Right, well, it
is
brings
enough
up the
in
point I
itself.
brought up earlier. You have to have real fans, right? And a couple of those real fans, if you had a conversation with them and they had that expertise to do it better than you. All right, there you go. So she is deputized to help you in your cause, because you're right. It used to be the musicians made music and that was it. Now you have to have this whole other side of your world that is super, I don't want to say as important because there's nothing more important than the music, but it has to be part of your conversation. So just look for help, because it is an incredibly time-consuming world to have to do this.
So, well, I understand, but do you have, is there specific people I could get to, you know, I've been trying to get help all along, and I haven't been able to get anybody to help me do much of anything with the computer, the internet, or help me promote me, or I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I've had those problems trying to find the help I need to.
Yeah, it is more of an individual thing to find those.
Do you have a smartphone?
zealots.
Actually, I'm not up to that yet, but yeah, I'm trying to get to that. I do have a phone, but not that.
So, I mean, I'm not trying to be a shill for, I don't work for Apple, I don't work for Android or any of those guys.
Right.
But smartphone makes it a lot easier. I hate to say it, but, you know, you got to get with the time. You know, and I mean that in a helpful way. Not a you know, come on kind of way.
Right.
It's just there are, if you're going to utilize these platforms, utilize them the simplest way you can. Simplest way you can is to have them with you, and when you get 5 or 10 minutes and can kill some time and can, you know, go use sound tracking or pop on your Facebook and answer a couple questions.
Actually, I'm the one that has Facebook. He's kind of not on it. I have Facebook, not him.
Oh, you have Facebook, not him.
All right, we gotta go. Thank you guys all so much for your time. Good luck with everything, and give a big hand for my panelists right here, and for Scott Aegis, who puts on this amazing conference every year.
One more time for Jonathan McHugh, David Hazan, Dick Huey, and Alex White. Incredibly distinguished folks. Thank you all so much. Don't go anywhere. We're going to roll right into the next segment. So, Tony. Thank you guys.
You got the Velcro. I'm gonna pop some tags. Only got $20 in my pocket. I'm hunting for some.